The year is 1895, and on a broad, gaslit street in a great city, a building the size of a palace is beginning, window by window, to fall asleep. They call it the Grand, because that is what it is and what it was built to be. 7 stories of stone and glass, 300 rooms, a front door taller than a carriage, and over the pavement a canopy of iron and glass where the cabs draw up out of the rain. All day it has roared softly like a well-fed fire, luggage and porters, arrivals and departures, the dining room's long silver thunder, and now the roar is dying to a murmur. The last diners are climbing the great staircase with their candles of habit, though the corridors glow with gas, and down in the marble hall a man in a dark uniform is putting on one button at a time, the quietest job in the city. His name is Mr. Sefton. He is the night porter. From 11 at night until 7 in the morning, the whole of this sleeping palace, every guest, every key, every lamp, every door belongs to him, and to the thick leather-bound book on the desk before him, in which the night itself is written down. This is history for sleep. Tonight we are going to spend one whole night, the entire night, from the last waltz to the first breakfast inside a grand Victorian hotel. We will watch the great house put itself to bed floor by floor. We will collect the boots left outside the bedroom doors and hear what they have to say. We will answer the night bell when it rings out of the dark and sit with the porter's lamp while 300 strangers sleep above us like a town stacked on shelves. Nothing frightening happens tonight. The doors are bolted, the fires are banked, someone steady is awake downstairs, and if stories like this help you drift off, subscribing helps me keep his lamp burning. Now the hall clock is clearing its throat to strike 11. The last cab has hissed away down the wet street, and Mr. Sefton has opened the night book to a clean page and written, in a round, unhurried hand, the first entry of his watch. 11 o'clock, all quiet, the house going down. Let us go in under the glass canopy, past the brass and the palms, and keep the night with him, stand a moment in the middle of the marble hall, where the light is lowest and warmest, and take the measure of the kingdom Mr. Sefton has just inherited for the night. A grand hotel of this age is not a large inn. It is a small city built vertically and run like a ship. Above you, floor upon floor, lie the bedrooms, 300 of them, from the great first-floor suites with their balconies and their own sitting rooms, down in dignity and up in altitude to the little single rooms under the roof, where a commercial traveller sleeps sound for a modest tariff. Around you on the ground floor spread the public rooms, each one the size of a church, and each now empty as one. The dining room with its acre of white linen already stripped, and its tables standing bare-legged till morning. The coffee room, the drawing room where the ladies withdrew after dinner, the smoking room, blue-aired and masculine, where the last 2 cigars of the day are burning down to their bands, the writing room with its racks of paper and its dry inkwells, the billiard room, cloth-brushed and lamps out. And below your feet you can feel it more than hear it, a warmth in the marble, a breath in the gratings, the other city, kitchens, cellars, larders, laundry, boiler house, the engine rooms of comfort, where 200 servants by day keep 300 guests fed, aired, laundered, lit and warmed, and where now only a handful of night hands keep the fires of all of it gently alive till dawn. The desk by the door is the border post between these worlds, and its governor is the man buttoned into the dark braided coat. Mr. Sefton is 50 or thereabouts, broad, deliberate, with a soldier's back. He was a soldier once, like many of his calling, and the habit of the sentry never left him, and a face built for the 2 great skills of his office, remembering everything and appearing surprised by nothing. He has been night porter at the Grand for 11 years. He knows the house the way a pilot knows a river by heart and in the dark. Before him on the desk, the lamp, turned low, the night book open, the telegraph forms, the railway timetable dog-eared at the night trains, a bradawl of a pencil, and at his back, floor to ceiling, the object that is the whole hotel in miniature, the key rack, 300 numbered hooks, each hook a room, each room a life. A key hanging means the guest is out or the room is empty. A key gone means somebody up there in the dark is home. He reads the rack the way a shepherd counts a fold, in one long practiced look, 11 keys still out, the 2 cigars in the smoking room, a card party in 140, a family not yet back from the theatre, the gentleman from the 7:40 express who wired to say he would be late. The rest of the town is abed. He dips his pen and writes, 11.10, smoking room 2 gentlemen, Ipite Suchte cards, quiet. Theatre party not in. 1 arrival expected off the night mail. The clock over the hall door, a great slow beating thing in a mahogany case, wound by his own hand every 3rd night of his life, walks on. Somewhere far above, a door closes with the soft boom doors make in very large buildings, and the sound comes down the stairwell like a stone dropped gently into a well. The house is going down, as he wrote. It takes a palace about an hour to fall asleep, and it is his favorite hour of the 24. Before the evening ends, one question deserves its quiet answer, because everything in this marble hall turns upon it. What does a night in a palace cost, and how did it come to be for sale at all? The tariff, the word itself, has the age's flavor, printed on a gilt-edged card behind every bedroom door, runs from half a crown or so for the little rooms under the roof, to a sovereign and beyond for the great suites with their balconies. Dinner at the table d'hôte for a few shillings more. Fires, baths and lights, itemized in the old style, though the newest houses have begun to sweep them into one inclusive figure, American fashion, and the trade papers argue about it furiously. Set against a working man's £1 a week, a night here is a luxury, no question, and yet that is precisely the revolution hiding in the arithmetic. A generation or 2 ago, this kind of comfort was not expensive, it was unavailable. No sum of money bought a stranger a palace bedroom, because palace bedrooms belonged to palaces, and palaces belonged to the blood. What the Grand Hotel did was put a price on the previously priceless, and any price, however steep, is a door where before there was a wall. The wool merchant, the successful grocer, the colonial engineer home with his savings, the century's great tide of new money found, waiting for it, a marble world that asked no questions of a guest, but too the name for the register and the settlement of the bill. And the bill itself is a small civilization. Everything flows to it, the dinner, the fires, the soda water at midnight, the cab the porter paid at 3, all written against the room by a system of dockets and day books that meets each morning in the bill office behind the hall, where clerks on high stools knit the threads together so that a departing guest is handed, with his hat, a single reckoning accurate to the penny. Around the formal tariff swirls the informal one, the tipping economy, the age's great unwritten ledger, the shilling to the boots, the half-crown to the chambermaid at week's end, the florin that finds the head waiter's palm as smoothly as water finds a drain. The moralists of the press denounce it annually, the trade privately runs on it, and a knowing traveller budgets for it as calmly as for the railway fare. Mr. Sefton's own share arrives in the small hours, the late arrival's coin, the card party's goodnight silver, and goes into a tin box at his lodgings, against the retirement every porter plans and few quite believe in. But here is the part of the price no bill can itemize, and the real secret of the whole roaring trade, what the guest is actually buying. Not the room, rooms are everywhere, not even the dinner. He is buying the organization, the 200 trained hands, the boilers and the bill office, the key rack and the night book, the entire invisible machine that will catch him, feed him, warm him, wake him, and keep him a machine, It took the century, its railways, its engineers, and its armies of service to learn how to build. One night of being caught by it costs half a crown to a sovereign. The knowledge that nothing whatever is your problem until breakfast, that, as the commercial traveller on the 6th floor could tell you, is the cheapest thing ever sold at the price. The going down began, as it always begins, in the dining room, 2 hours ago, when the long service of dinner reached its coffee and its nuts and its final scrape of chairs. Dinner at the Grand is the engine of the whole establishment, and it comes in 2 liturgies. There is the TAHBL-do-HT, the host's table, the great fixed dinner at a fixed hour and a fixed price, soup to savoury and 7 courses, where the visitors dine together down long tables as travellers have dined together since the coaching inns, and where half the pleasure is watching one's neighbours and guessing their stories. And there is the newer fashion, à la carte in the restaurant, where you order what you please when you please, and pay accordingly, a French invention that the great hotels carried into this country along with their French chefs, and which the old guard still regards as faintly unsporting. Tonight both rooms did their full business. Soup and fish and joints and ices went up. The band in the Palm Court played its program of waltzes at a volume calculated to a nicety to be talked over, and by 10 the ladies had withdrawn, the gentlemen had scattered to their smoke, and the machinery below stairs had begun the long exhale of the scullery, 100 dozen plates passing through the hands of men who will still be drying silver at midnight. Now at 11:15, the evening is down to its embers. In the smoking room, the 2 last cigars sit in leather chairs a companionable distance apart, strangers content to be silent in company, the fire between them settling. In 1:40, the card party is playing out its final rubber with the special hush of men who have promised their wives they were nearly done an hour ago. The band packed its instruments at 10:30. The second violin is already asleep in his lodgings 2 streets away, and a page boy in his buttons, the last of the day staff, went yawning up to his attic bed after carrying the evening's final tray. In the hall, the gas has been lowered ring by ring. The palms stand in their tubs like patient green servants, and the revolving door, that new marvel, a door that is never open and never shut, has been fixed for the night, the ordinary side door beside it now the only way in or out of the palace, and that guarded by the desk, the lamp, and Mr. Sefton. At 11:30 the theatre party returns. You hear the cab before you see them, hooves and a spray of wet gravel under the porte-cochere, the carriage porch, and they come in laughing softly at the door, and then in the great quiet of the hall, lowering their voices as everyone does, as though the building itself had raised a finger. A mother, 2 grown daughters, an evening of melodrama shining on all 3 of them. Mr. Sefton has their keys off the rack before they reach the desk. He heard the cab, he knew the party, the keys were in his hand, and he receives their good nights and their small confidences. The play was wonderful, the villain was hissed, supper is wanted for no one, only sleep. With the gravity of a man accepting dispatches, candles are not needed. The corridors glow soft with gas all night, but the eldest daughter takes one anyway, because a candle going up to bed is a habit older than hotels, and some habits are worth the carrying. Their footsteps climb, turn, fade. 3 more keys off the rack. He writes 11:35, theatre party in, house nearly down. While the last keys wait on the rack, let the building itself tell you where it came from, because a grand hotel is a young kind of place pretending to be an old one, and its true parents are 2 things we have kept nights with before, the inn and the railway. For centuries, the finest lodging the road could offer was the great coaching inn, the arched yard, the galleries, the ordinary at a fixed hour, the landlord who knew the road and everyone on it. We spent a rainy night at one once, on the Great West Road, and the whole world of it ran on horses. An inn could be no bigger than its stables, no busier than the coaches that 8 or 10 fresh teams a day could bring it. Then, within one lifetime, the railway happened. The coaches faded from the roads, the great yards fell quiet, and the traveller, who had once arrived by 4s at a walled town's inn, now arrived by the 100 at a city terminus, and needed somewhere to sleep that was built to the railway's new scale. The answer rose quite literally beside the platforms, the railway hotels, cliff-faced and enormous, the first buildings in the world designed from the foundations up to sleep strangers by the many hundred. The station hotel took the coaching inn's ancient promise, walk in off the road with money and be housed, fed and kept safe, no questions asked, and multiplied it by steam. And then the idea left the stations and became a palace. Through the middle and late decades of the century, in the capitals and the spa towns and along the new seaside fronts, the grand hotels proper went up buildings that competed with each other in marble and plate glass, the way cathedrals had once competed in spires. They imported French kitchens and French menus. They installed the astonishing new machines, passenger lifts, electric bells, bathrooms by the score, in time even the electric light, and they sold, to anyone with the tariff, a night of living like a lord. That was the quiet revolution of it, easy to miss from inside. A duke had always been able to sleep in luxury because he owned it. The Grand Hotel made luxury a thing you could rent one night of palace life, marble hall, liveried service and all, for the price of a ticket. The middle classes of the whole world took the offer, and the age of the hotel began. Its masters became famous men, the great Swiss hotelier whose very surname would come to mean luxury itself, and his partner the king of chefs, who between them taught the age that a hotel could be a work of art. History remembers their names in lights, but this chapter is not really theirs. It belongs to a humbler inheritance because when the coaching inns died, their people did not. The ostlers' grandsons became railway porters. The chambermaids' daughters made beds on the 3rd floor of establishments like this one, and the old landlord's midnight walk, the locking round the candle, the listening to a sleeping house, survived too. It divided, like an estate among heirs. The keys and the cellar book went to the manager, the welcome went to the head porter and his day brigade, and the night, the plain, long, faithful keeping of the night, came down to one man at a lamp by the door. Mr. Sefton, though he has never once thought of it this way, is the last of the landlord's line, the innkeeper's watch, gone into uniform. The house he keeps is 30 times the size of the White Hart on the West Road, and yet at 10 past midnight, with the fires banked and the book open, it is exactly, precisely the same work. Somebody awake, so that everybody may sleep. The dining room is dark now, but its day deserves one remembering before the night owns the house entirely, because dinner at a grand hotel is the most elaborate, peaceful ceremony the age performs daily, and the machine behind it is a wonder worth turning over slowly, like a watch opened at the back. Service à la Russe, the new style is called in the Russian manner, and within living memory it conquered the tables of the whole polite world. In the old style, a dinner arrived all at once. The table laid solid with dishes, a landscape of food from which the company carved and reached and helped one another, glorious and chaotic as a harvest. The new style sends the dinner in waves, course after course, each dish carried in, served from the side by a waiter's gloved hands, and carried away again, so that the diner sits before a clean horizon of linen and silver, while the meal comes to him in chapters, like a story told slowly. It multiplied the silverware into a grammar all its own, the ranked forks, the fish knives, the small armory beside each plate that anxious new guests learn to read from the outside in, and it multiplied the waiters, for a dinner in waves needs a brigade to carry it. Station waiters and commis and wine waiters moving down the long room in their quiet choreography, 70 covers rising and falling in unison, a service timed from the kitchen like a tide. and it made the menu into literature. The great card, written in French from Consommé to Bombay, is composed each morning by the chef as seriously as a poem. 7 courses built on the old classical architecture, the soup to wake the appetite, the fish to charm it, the entrée to engage it, the joint to satisfy it, then the game, the sweet, the savoury to close the door, a progression, a century of French kitchen science refined to the smoothness of a staircase. Half the diners cannot translate a line of it. That is partly the point. The head waiter translates with a courtliness that flatters everyone involved, and the wool merchant who began the evening intimidated by his forks ends it 2 hours later, soothed, fed, and quietly convinced, as the whole machine intends him to be, that he has dined like an ambassador, because he has. By 11, the entire apparatus, the brigade, the silver grammar, the 7-course staircase, the 200 plates a course has been played through, washed, counted, locked, and put away, and the room where it happened stands bare and breathing in the dark under Mr. Sefton's passing lamp. That is perhaps the strangest, gentlest fact about the age's grandest daily performance. It vanishes nightly without a trace, like a tide going out, and is rebuilt from the linen up every morning before 1. The stage is struck, the theatre sleeps, and the only audience left is one man with a lamp, walking the empty aisles where the ambassadors dined, on his way to bolt the doors. The band packed up at 10:30, but its music is still settling out of the air like dust in sunlight, and no portrait of the Grand Hotel is finished without it. For this age invented, along with the lift and the hot tap, a wholly new place for music to live, the Palm Court. Every great hotel now keeps its orchestra the way it keeps its French chef, a small ensemble, piano and strings, a light uniformed navy of music, playing through tea and again through dinner from a dais among the potted palms. And the music they play is its own invention, not the concert halls and not the streets, but the in-between repertoire the trade calls light music, waltzes and selections, airs from the operettas, gentle arrangements of everything, played at a volume engineered to a nicety for the age's subtlest social purpose, to be half heard. Palm Court music is furniture that moves. It fills the silences between strangers, lacquers the clink of teacups, gives the solitary diner something gracious to appear absorbed in, and lets 200 people share a room without sharing a conversation. The first violin, always called the leader, always slightly famous within a quarter-mile radius, takes requests at tea time from the regular ladies, and grants them with a bow that costs nothing and is worth, in goodwill, half a page of advertising. The musicians themselves live the strangest of the hotel's many half-in, half-out lives. They are artists in a house of service, saluted by the pages, paid like senior waiters, dressed like diplomats, men who studied at conservatoires and dreamed once of other platforms, and who have mostly made their peace with the dais among the palms, because the work is warm, steady and pensioned. 3 things the concert hall never promised anybody. The second violin, asleep now 2 streets away, practices Beethoven privately at dawn and plays selections from the operettas publicly at dinner. And if you asked him about it, men have, he would say, with the serenity of the fully grown, that Beethoven is how he loves music, and the Palm Court is how music loves him back, and that a man could do far worse than spend his working life making a great room gentler, which is, when you consider it, precisely the trade of everyone else in the building, transposed for strings. The last selection ended at 10:30, with the little ritual flourish that tells a drawing room kindly that it is a bedroom time. The dais lamps went out, the palms keep the empty stage, and here is a small secret of the night rounds. 11 years old and never once entered in the book, the hall clock's slow beat, in the small hours, falls at very nearly the tempo of the waltzes, and Mr. Sefton, crossing the Palm Court at 1 with his lamp, walks through the lingering ghost of the evening's music at the evening's own pace, sentry step and 3/4 time agreeing in the dark, the night watch keeping in its own fashion the last dance of the day. Just before midnight, the smoking room surrenders. The 2 cigars come out together, nodding to each other by the door, as men do who have shared 2 hours of companionable silence and never learned each other's names. And Mr. Sefton, who knows both their rooms without asking, hands each his key and receives each good night, one gruff, one courtly, like a toll at a bridge. 10 minutes later, the card party breaks up with the soft rumble of pushed-back chairs, and 4 gentlemen cross the hall in a loose, contented constellation, carrying their candles of habit, arguing in whispers about a queen of spades that will be argued about at breakfast too. The last keys but one come off the rack. The rack now shows a single empty hook, room 212, the gentleman expected off the night mail, and now the palace is his, and he puts it to bed the way his 11 years have taught him, from the top of the evening downward. He crosses to the great front door, and beside the fixed revolving door he bolts the side door. 2 bolts, a lock and a chain, each with its own old sound, and above the chain he checks the small brass wicket of the night bell, whose wire runs to a bell above his desk for a hotel, like an inn before it, never truly closes. It only narrows to a single lighted door, and one man's judgment of who may come through it. Then the lamps of the public rooms, 1 room at a time, the drawing room's last gas ring turned down to a bead, the writing room dark, the billiard room dark. In the smoking room he stands a moment while the fire settles behind its guard, gathers the 2 abandoned newspapers, squares their creases out of habit, and leaves them folded for the morning. The dining room he crosses without a light, by feel and long habit, 60 tables breathing linen smell in the dark, and at its far end he tries the service doors locked, as they should be. The scullery finished its silver at 11:30 and went up its own stairs to bed. Last, the lift. It stands at the bottom of its shaft with its concertina gate folded shut, brass cage gleaming faintly, the pride of the house, and still, to half the guests, a small adventure, the ascending room, some of the older visitors still call it, and a few will not enter it at all and climb their 4 floors nightly on principle. The lift boy went off at 11. After 11, the porter himself drives any late guest upward, but the theatre party chose the staircase, and the card men always walk. He looks into the empty cage, checks that the gate is home on its latch, and turns the shaft light down. The great staircase winds up into the dark above him, story after story, with the gas at every landing lowered to its nightly glimmer. Little buds of blue-gold light climbing into silence, and from the top of the house to the marble under his boots, there is now not one soul awake in the palace but himself. He goes back to the desk, and the clock strikes 12:12, slow, mahogany strokes that fill the hall the way a tide fills a harbour, unhurried and complete. He waits out the last stroke with his pen already dipped in the old private ceremony of the watch, and then writes, as he has written 4,000 nights, midnight, house down, doors bolted, all quiet, one to come. While the house settles into its first deep water, spare a thought for that brass cage at the bottom of its shaft, because no single machine in the building says more about the age that built it. For all of human history until this century, the value of a room was governed by one plain tyranny: stairs. The best floor was the first floor, one gracious flight above the noise and the mud. The floor of balconies and chandeliers and everything above it declined by the legful, until the attics, cheapest and highest, went to servants and students and the writers of unpublished poetry. A palace could be as wide as a king's purse, but it could only comfortably be 3 stories tall. Then the hotels, always the hotels first, because a hotel is a machine for comfort and will buy any invention that spares a guest an effort, began to install the ascending room, a little furnished chamber, velvet bench and mirror and lamp that rose gently through the building on a hydraulic ram. Water pressure doing 60 stairs worth of work, while the passenger merely stood still and felt, according to their temperament, either wonder or grave suspicion. The early ones moved at the pace of honey. That was thought a virtue. One rose through the house as through water, floor after floor sliding softly past the little window in the gate, and arrived at the top of the building with one's dignity unbreathed upon. It changed the shape of buildings, and then it quietly turned them upside down. Once height cost nothing in legs, height became a luxury. The upper floors, with their airy views over the chimney pots and their distance from the street's rattle, crept up in price, and the age of the top floor began. It changed manners too. In small ways the etiquette books scrambled to catch. Whether a gentleman removes his hat in the lift in the presence of ladies, yes, the lift being held, after some debate, to be a room, not a conveyance. Whether one speaks briefly, if at all. Where one looks at the gate, by universal unspoken treaty of the whole human race, then and forever after. And for the hotels it became the second great promise after the bolted door, that the palace would carry you. Your luggage rose on its own service lift. Your dinner could rise to your room. You yourself rose like a duke ascending, and the marble stairs became what they remain in every grand hotel since, a stage for descending slowly in an evening gown, while the honest work of altitude happens in the cage next door. Mr. Sefton's relations with the machine are correct rather than warm. He respects the hydraulics as he respects the boilers, sound servants, well maintained, and he drives the cage smoothly on the rare late night it is wanted. But he himself, on his rounds, takes the stairs, all of them, every night, as he will do tonight at 2. Partly it is the soldier's legs, mostly it is the sentry's creed, which no machine has yet been built to satisfy, that a house is not truly walked unless it is walked, landing by landing, door by door, with a lamp, and that the stairs, taken slowly, tell a careful man things the ascending room glides past. The cage sleeps in its shaft, the water waits in its ram, patient as everything else in this building, and the porter, when the time comes, will climb. At 12:30 begins the gentlest, oddest, most intimate ceremony of the hotel night, one that has vanished so completely from the world that it needs explaining, though for 2 centuries it needed none. Outside every occupied bedroom door in this palace, on the corridor carpet, stands a pair of boots. The guests put them out at bedtime as naturally as they wind their watches. Boots, shoes, ladies' walking boots, all left at the door like small leather offerings to the night. And in the night they are gathered, cleaned, blacked, polished, and returned silently, invisibly, by hands no guest ever sees, so that every morning at the Grand, as at every inn back to the far side of the coaching age, 300 people step into boots that shine like new pennies and think nothing of it at all. It is the oldest service in the house. The very word for it became a person, the boots, the boy or man who does it. We met one once at a coaching inn, a knowing lad of 15, and the Grand keeps a boot still. Young Billy, 16, who comes on at midnight, sleeps a broken sleep on a cot behind the boot room and shares the blacking with the porter on heavy nights, the way apprentice and master have always shared a bench. So now, floor by floor, Billy goes down the long dim corridors with his wicker basket, walking on the balls of his feet, the way Mr. Sefton taught him heel walking. In a sleeping corridor is a hanging offence in the porter's law, collecting the pairs and chalking the room number on each sole as he goes. For a mixed basket of unmarked boots is the stuff of the trade's oldest nightmares. And down in the boot room, in the warm lamplight and the good smells of leather and blacking and beeswax, he and Mr. Sefton, who takes the first hour of the boots for company's sake, as he has for 11 years, set to work at the long bench, brush off the day's mud, work the blacking in, then the polishing brush, then the soft cloth, each pair handed down the little assembly line of two, finished to a gleam, set in ranks by floor. And here is the secret of the boot room, which Billy is only beginning to learn. The boots talk. Not names, the porter's discretion is absolute, and what the boot room knows, the boot room keeps but lives. Here is the commercial traveller's stout pair, resoled twice, mud of 3 counties in the welts, a man who walks his living and whose boots are blacked as carefully as a lord's, because at the Grand the tariff buys the same shine for every soul. Here are the honeymoon couples, his new and citified, hers newer still, the leather barely creased, both pairs so obviously bought for the wedding journey that the 2 men at the bench exchange one small smile and say nothing. Here are the old generals, veterans themselves, polished nightly for 50 years by other hands in other places, the leather soft as a saddle. Mr. Sefton does these himself, always with a soldier's particular care. Little boots from the family on the 3rd floor, scuffed joyous at every toe. The opera singer's evening shoes, light as paper. Pair by pair the basket empties and the ranks fill, a whole sleeping census told in leather, and by 2 o'clock the work will go back up the corridors as silently as it came down, each pair to its own door, heels to the wainscot, toes out ready, before any eye is open to see them, for the morning of 300 strangers. Back at the desk between errands, the lamp finds the 2 plainest objects in the marble hall, the key rack and the night book, and they deserve their own small chapter, because between them they hold the entire idea of the hotel. Consider the rack first. 300 brass hooks, 300 numbered keys, each with its heavy brass tag, heavy on purpose, so that a key forgotten in a pocket drags like a conscience and comes back. It is the simplest possible machine, and yet it performs nightly a small miracle of trust. 300 strangers who have never met and mostly never will, hand the security of everything they carry, their letters, their jewels, their sleeping children, to a wall of hooks behind one man's shoulder, and think no more of it than of the sunrise. The rack is why they can. At one glance it tells the porter the state of his whole kingdom, who is in, who is out, which floors are heavy tonight and which stand empty. A hotel detective story always begins with the rack, and so does every quiet, ordinary night. The guests upstairs sleep behind their locks, but the map of all the locks hangs here, in the lamplight, under one steady pair of eyes, the fold gathered, as it were, into a single shepherd's glance. And then the book. Every trade that keeps the night keeps a log. The ship, the lighthouse, the signal box, we have read from all of them on other nights, and the hotel's is the night book. And it may be the gentlest log in the world, because on a good night it is a record of nothing at all, kept beautifully. Midnight, house down. 1 o'clock, all quiet. Boots done, corridors quiet, lamps well. 11 years of Mr. Sefton's nights stand in a row of identical volumes in the manager's office, and a stranger leafing through them would find perhaps a dozen pages of genuine event in 4000, a burst pipe met with buckets and promptness, a guest taken ill, and a doctor fetched through the rain, the great gale that took slates off the roof while the house slept through it, never knowing. All the rest is the same few words in the same round hand, night after night after night, all quiet. That is not idleness, that is the product. The book is the manufactory record of the one thing the hotel truly sells, which is not marble or soup, but undisturbed sleep, and every entry of all quiet is a unit of it, made by hand, delivered by morning. He makes the 12:30 entry now, boots gathered, Billy at the bench, and rules a small neat line beneath it, and the clock walks on. Somewhere in the ledgers of the world's important places, great things are being written tonight. Treaties, verdicts, prices. The night book of the Grand records that 300 people are breathing softly in the dark, and that a man downstairs has noticed, and that nothing whatever is wrong. There may be no more restful sentence in the language than the one this book exists to hold, all quiet. We might let it stand as the motto of every night we have ever kept together. One more door on the ground floor deserves opening while the boots are at the bench, a plain door behind the hall into a room that smells of leather and travel itself, the luggage room, where the baggage of the whole parish sleeps in ranks and where the age's entire way of moving through the world stands written on trunk lids. Victorian luggage is architecture, the great dome-topped trunks, iron-banded, brass-cornered, built by the famous makers to outlive their owners, the flat steamer trunks designed to slide under a cabin bunk, the portmanteaus and Gladstone bags and hat boxes and dressing cases, with their fitted silver bottles a prosperous family travels with, a small freight train of it, and the hotel receives, stores, moves and dispatches it all with the solemnity of a customs house. Billy and the day porters know the crafts of it the way sailors know knots, how a dome trunk rides a barrow, how a hat box must never be bottommost, how the luggage lift is loaded so the first needed comes off first. And on every lid, the age's most casual and most wonderful decoration, the labels. Hotel labels, shipping line labels, railway destination labels, pasted one over another season after season until a well-travelled trunk becomes a mosaic of its own biography, Paris and Biarritz under Lucerne, a steamship line's flag half hidden by a mountain spar, the whole itinerary of a life readable at a glance in the lamplight. Porters read trunks as they read boots. A lid crowded with labels is an old campaigner, a single fresh label on virgin leather is a wedding journey, and the luggage room at night is a library of such biographies, shelved and sleeping. There is a shelf at the back too, that every hotel keeps and none advertises, the left luggage trunks deposited and never yet called for, some a season old, one or two much older, each with its story sealed inside and its ticket yellowing. The trade's rule is patience. Trunks are held, ledgered and kept, sometimes for years, because the traveller's world is wide and slow, and a man summoned suddenly to a colony may be 3 years coming back for his winter coats, and does come back, more often than not, and finds them brushed and waiting, which is the sort of thing that makes a guest for life. The luggage room asks no questions of a trunk, as the register asks none of its owner. It simply keeps things safe until wanted, which is when you reduce it, the entire profession of this whole building, practiced on leather instead of people. Mr. Sefton's lamp crosses the room once in the night, on his round ranks of sleeping leather, the mosaic lids glinting their old journeys, the patient shelf at the back, and finds it always deeply satisfactory. A hotel is a harbour, this is the hold. He draws the door to and leaves the biographies to their shelves. At 1 o'clock, with the boots at the halfway mark and Billy safe at his bench, Mr. Sefton takes his lamp and makes the first of his 2 great rounds, the ground floor round, through the public rooms, which by day belong to everyone, and at this hour belong to no one, which is a different thing entirely from belonging to him. An empty palace room at night is one of the quiet wonders of the world, and he has never grown past it, though he would put it less grandly. The dining room first, 60 tables in the dark, the morning's linen already sleeved on the sideboards, and the room's daytime roar, 200 voices, silver on china, the surf of a full service, so wholly gone that its absence is itself a presence, a sort of hum of stillness the ear keeps reaching for. His lamp swims along the mirrors as he walks the aisles, one light and its reflections keeping company down the long room, and he tries the windows as he goes, latched every one as they were last night and the 4,000 nights before. Then the palm court, glass roof to the weather, where the rain has come back and speaks on the panes in its small conversational way, and the palms stand around the dry fountain like guests who have missed the last train and taken it well. The drawing room smelling of cold flowers and the ghosts of perfume. The smoking room, where the banked fire has one deep red eye half open behind the guard, and the leather chairs sit in a circle like a parliament adjourned. The writing room, its blotters printed with the mirror writing of 100 finished letters. The billiard room, where the lamp's light rolls once, slow and green, across the shrouded table. In each room the same small liturgy: fire looked to, windows tried, gas checked at its bead, one long listening pause in the middle of the floor, and then the door drawn to behind him, not locked, for the public rooms of a hotel are never locked against the guests, only put to sleep like everything else. This round has no drama in it, and is designed to have none. It is prevention, walked nightly, the way the keeper trimmed his wick and the signalman tried his levers, the humble craft of making sure that nothing happens, practiced so faithfully that nothing does. But it is also, though he would never use the word, a kind of ownership. By day, Mr. Sefton is a servant in a corridor of servants, saluted past by guests who could not name him. At 1 in the morning, alone with his lamp in the middle of the sleeping dining room, he is something older and larger, the keeper of the whole ark, the one waking mind in a palace of dreamers, the man the entire gilded apparatus quietly depends upon and will never quite see. Every night trade we have kept has this hour in it somewhere. It is the hour that pays better than the wages. He comes back to the hall at 1:20, writes 1.20, ground floor round. Fires safe, windows fast, all quiet, and stands a moment listening to the rain on the canopy glass outside the door, the good rain, the trade's old friend that sends the whole city early to bed and makes a bolted door feel like a blessing. Above his head, 300 rooms of it, he rules his little line. The clock walks on toward the deep of the night, before the stair round, come down once quietly by the service stair behind the green baize door, for even a palace keeps a baize door into the warm underworld that the guests never see and could not sleep without, the basement city at rest. The kitchen first, because everything radiates from it here as surely as it did at the coaching inn. By day it is a battlefield of a place, a brigade of 40 cooks under a French chef, each at his own station in the great partitioned system the age's famous kitchen master taught the world. Sauces here, roasts there, pastry in its own cool room, 100 copper pans flashing under the gas like armor. Now it lies in the half-dark, scrubbed to the grain of its tables, and the only light is the soft red breathing of the great ranges, banked for the night, but never out, for a range this size is like a ship's boiler, days to heat from cold, and so it is kept sleeping shallow, fed and smoored by the nightman on his hourly pass. And on the back of the range, in the biggest of all the pots, the stock-pot murmurs the eternal stock-pot, oldest lore of every great kitchen, simmering its bones down through the dark toward tomorrow's soups, muttering to itself exactly as its little cousin muttered at the White Hart 100 years before. Some sounds simply do not change, no matter how grand the house around them grows. Beyond the kitchen, the provinces, the larders, cold and orderly, game hanging in the meat larder, tomorrow's fish on ice that came down from the north packed in sawdust, the dairy with its churns standing like plump sentries, the ice room itself lined with zinc, where the blocks sleep under sacking through the warmest summer, the wine cellar behind its iron gate, 30,000 bottles lying on their sides in the dark, doing slowly and silently the only work wine has, while the cellar book that indexes every bin sits upstairs under the manager's lock. The porter's lamp, passing the gate, wakes 100 little points of light along the racked necks, like stars underground. The laundry, finished at 9, smelling of soap and hot iron and starch. Tomorrow's 300 pillowcases folded in white battalions. The silver room, where the plate sleeps in baize-lined drawers behind a door like a bank's. And at the far end, in a chamber of pipes and pressure gauges, the true heart of the modern palace, the boiler room, where old Mr. Croft, the night stoker, a retired ship's fireman, as they often are, keeps steam on the hot water system and the heating coils all night from his wooden chair, with his tea can on a pipe flange and his own small logbook of pressures, the sleeping hotel's engine watch. He and Sefton exchange 2 words at the grating, as they do every night at this hour. Both find the exchange completely satisfactory, and above all this, between the palace and its engine rooms, lies one more country the guests never think of, the staff floors up under the roof. 200 people live in this building, waiters and chambermaids and pages and cooks, in little plain rooms under the slates, the men's stair and the women's stair at opposite ends of the attic, with the housekeeper's room like a customs house between. We spent a whole night once below stairs in a great private house. This is that world-grown industrial, a village of working sleepers stacked above the very guests they will serve at 7. The second violin of the palm court dreaming 2 floors above the Duchess, the pastry cook who must rise at 4:30, already 6 hours down. The Grand Hotel is always described as a palace for the public. Seen from the night stair, it is something even stranger and rather finer. 500 sleepers of every rank and nation under one roof, guests and servants, generals and boot boys, all breathing in the same dark, all kept by the same few lamps, the most democratic sleeping arrangement the century has yet devised, though nobody in it would thank you for saying so. While the night keeps its single lamp, remember the daylight army it stands in for, because the desk Mr. Sefton holds alone from 11 to 7 is held, the other 16 hours, by a uniformed brigade whose commander outranks, in the guests' eyes, nearly everyone alive, the head porter. You have seen him, if you have ever passed a great hotel at noon, the silver-haired sovereign of the steps, in the long braided coat, who appears to be merely standing and is in fact conducting cabs summoned with one lifted finger, luggage flowing to the lifts, arrivals read, sorted and remembered at a glance. The head porter of a grand hotel is its living index. He knows the guests by name and by year, their trains, their tempers, their tips. He knows the city as a pilot knows a coast, which theatre has seats tonight, which doctor comes quickest, where a dress shirt may be got on a Sunday, and the trade's honest saying is that a good manager runs the hotel, but a great head porter is the hotel, as far as the guests can see. Under him ranges the Door Brigade in its ranks, the luggage porters, big patient men with barrowcraft in their shoulders, the commissionaires at the curb, the pages in their button jackets, boys of 12 and 14, the hotel's infantry, carrying cards and telegrams and small parcels at the half-run all day, learning the house from its carpets up, the lift boy in his cage, the doormen who spin the revolving door for those who mistrust it. It is an army recruited young and promoted slow, and its ladder is the house itself, page to luggage, luggage to door, door for the steadiest to the desk, and the desk, at the summit of one career in 50, to the braided coat on the steps. Between that daylight empire and the night's garrison of one lies the trade's quietest treaty. The head porter and the night porter are the 2 poles of the same office, the public face and the private faith, and they honor each other across the handover with the mutual courtesy of men who could not do each other's work. The head porter, master of crowds, would wither in the marble silence of 3 in the morning. Sefton, master of silence, regards the noon steps as a battlefield he is well out of. 11 years of 7 o'clocks, the book passed between the same 4 hands, the night's 6 sentences given and taken. It is as near to friendship as 2 men can come, who are never once awake in the same room for longer than 10 minutes, and nearer than most. The pages, for what it is worth, hold both men in awe, but the night porter in something closer to legend, the man who keeps the whole dark alone, and the boldest of them, on early duty, has been known to ask him what the hotel is like at 3 in the morning. The answer is 11 years old, and always the same, delivered gravely, with the coat's top button done up. Quiet, if I do it right. Someday one of those boys will hold a lamp of his own somewhere and find out precisely what that sentence cost and what it bought. The trade hands itself down that way, question by question, brigade to garrison, one buttoned answer at a time. At 2 o'clock, Mr. Sefton takes his lamp and his master keys and does what the ascending room will never understand. He climbs the whole house. Seven stories, floor by floor, landing by landing, corridor by corridor, the stair round, the long round, the sentries round proper. His pace on the stairs is the pace of a man with all night, which is the only pace that misses nothing, and the house comes to him as he climbs, floor by floor, each with its own weather. The first floor is the grandest and the stillest, its corridor wide as a country road, its air faintly warm with dinner still. Behind these tall doors sleep the suites, the general in 111, who dines at the same table 40 nights a year, the elderly sisters in 120, who live at the Grand from October to May and call their rooms home, because for them it is. The second and third floors are the busy middle country. Here the boots have already gone back to their doors, pair by pair, heels to the wainscot, and his lamp runs along them as he passes, like a reviewing officer, the travellers' stout pair, the little scuffed pairs of the third-floor children, the bridal shoes side by side and slightly, unconsciously touching, at which the lamp does not pause, but the man behind it very slightly smiles. On the fourth floor, a line of light under a door, and the small dry cough of a wakeful guest. He notes the number without breaking step if the bell rings presently for hot milk. The kitchen range will answer in 5 minutes, and he will know already which floor to take it to. On the fifth, nothing but carpet and gaslight, and the rain on a stair window. On the sixth, the cheaper rooms, the deepest sleepers, the honest snore of the commercial traveller who walked 3 counties this week and has earned every fathom of it. At each landing, the liturgy, the corridor listened down, the gas bead checked, the service pantry door tried, the fire hose and its brass standpipe passed with a glance for the great hotels. Having learned hard lessons in other cities, now build against fire the way ships build against the sea, stone stairs and iron doors and water laid on at every floor, and the night porter's round is the living part of that armour. And at the top of the house, the last landing of all, the staff floor, lino instead of carpet, a plain lamp burning, the long rows of little doors behind which his 200 daytime colleagues sleep their short professional sleep. He walks it as carefully as the first floor, more carefully if anything, for the pastry cook's 4:30 comes early, and these sleepers have no bells to ring for anything. Then the attic box-room passage, the water tanks talking softly in their timber jackets, the door to the roof tried and fast, and down he comes by the far stair, unhurried, 7 stories of sleeping palace now walked, listened to, and found he has the word ready as his boots reach the marble all quiet. 2.40, the book says when the round is written, stair round complete, boots returned, 1 wakeful, 4th floor, house sound asleep. The clock agrees. The rain has eased to its small hour's whisper, and the night, having shown him all 7 of its floors, folds itself around the desk and the lamp and settles, with the whole deep middle of the dark still to come. Between the rounds, one more province of the palace deserves its nightly visit, a country the guests touch for 8 hours of every 24 and never once see the borders of, the linen country, the empire of white. Count it as the housekeeper's books count it, 300 beds, each with its sheets and pillow slips, 60 dining tables and their cloths and their 4-a-cover napkins, towels by the 1,000, bath and hand and huckaback, the waiters' aprons, the cook's whites, the chambermaid's caps. A grand hotel owns linen the way a navy owns sailcloth, tens of thousands of pieces, marked, numbered and mustered like a crew. It lives in the linen rooms, tall warm closets on every floor, and the great central store beside the laundry. shelf above shelf of folded white in battalions, smelling of soap and lavender and hot iron, a smell that, once met, means hotel to a traveller for the rest of their life, the way toast means nursery. And it moves in a perpetual tide, down the service stairs foul, through the laundry's coppers and mangles and drying rooms and ironing tables, and back up sweet. A complete cycle, for the busy floors every few days, all year, forever. The laundress and her staff wash for 500 daily, the calendaring machines iron sheets by the mile, and the mending room's needlewomen keep a hospital for wounded linen. Darning and turning and demoting for linen has ranks, and descends them with age. The suite's fine sheets serve years, then are turned sides to middle, and serve the staff floor, then become dusters, then rags, then are sold at last by the hundredweight, having given the house every thread of themselves. Nothing in the linen country is wasted. It is run like the navy it resembles, and at the head of it stands the second most powerful person in the building, the housekeeper, Mrs. Ashworth here, a widow of formidable serenity, whose keys open every linen room and every bedroom, whose word governs 40 chambermaids, and with whom even the manager treats as one sovereign with another. Her country and the kitchens divide the below-stairs world between them, exactly as cook and butler divided the great private houses we have kept nights in. The Grand Hotel changed the scale of that old duel without changing its diplomacy in the least. By night her country sleeps under counterpane and key, its tide paused, its battalions folded, and the porter's lamp passing the linen-room doors on the stair round gives them the same approving glance as the wine-cellar's gate. Behind those doors is the actual substance of the hotel's one true product. Marble is the promise. Dinner is the persuasion. But what the guest finally buys, at the end of every tariff, is 8 hours between clean white sheets, and the country that grows them, launders them, and marches them upstairs is as surely the heart of the palace as the boilers below it. While the deep middle gathers, remember 2 more of the palace's quiet machines, because the age's true luxuries were not the chandeliers, and every guest upstairs knows it in their bones, even if they have never once thought it. The first is hot water. For the whole long history of inns before this one, hot water was a thing carried, heated at a fire, lugged upstairs in cans by servants' arms, a gallon at a time, cooling as it climbed. We watched Susan mountaineer with her cans up a great house's back stairs on another night, and every inn and every household ran on that same aching portage. The Grand Hotel ended it with pipes. Down in Mr. Croft's kingdom, the boilers keep their pressure all night, precisely so that on every floor, at any hour, a guest may turn a tap and receive instantly, miraculously, without ringing for a single soul, water hot from the wall. The first generation to meet this simply did not get over it. Travellers' letters home dwell on the hot tap longer than on the marble, and beside the taps, the bathrooms themselves, still counted in this decade by the floor rather than by the room. A bathroom to every so many bedrooms booked through the chambermaid, a deep enamelled tub in a room warm with its own pipes, but multiplying with every new hotel built as the palaces race each other toward the unthinkable standard the next century will take for granted. A private bath for every traveller who wants one. The White Hart offered you a warming pan and a jug. The Grand offers you a small private ocean at blood heat on the 4th floor of a city building at 2 in the morning. Of all the age's wonders, this is the one the guest would riot soonest to keep. The second machine is arriving even now, hotel by hotel, street by street, the electric light. The Grand still keeps to gas, the soft, warm, faintly breathing gaslight that this whole night has been bathed in, the light every corridor and every night round of the century has been walked by, but the newest palaces have wired themselves for the incandescent lamp, and the writing is on the wall in letters of glass. The guests who have met it come back evangelized, Light with no flame, no fume, no slow eating of the room's air. Light a lady's maid can make with a turn of a switch. Light that cannot, ever, set a curtain going, and that last argument, in the trade that fears fire above all things, will win the war by itself. The porters of the electric houses report one small loss with the gain, and Mr. Sefton, who has heard it discussed at the Porters' Benevolent Society dinner, understands them perfectly. A switched corridor is either day bright or pitch dark, and the old night glimmer, the gas lowered to its bead, the long soft dusk of a sleeping corridor, the very light of the night watch itself, has no setting on the new switches. Progress will find one in time. There will be dim lamps enough in the century ahead. But something of this particular amber quiet, the light all our nights together have been kept by, will go out with the gas, and he is glad, in his undemonstrative way, to be keeping his watches while it burns. He turns his own lamp oil, old style, the sentry's friend a shade lower, in the manner of a man voting. The clock walks, the rain speaks on the canopy, and the palace sleeps on into the small hours, lit like the past, plumbed like the future, holding both with perfect calm. One more of the house's hidden marvels before the night bell has its hour, the one threaded invisibly through every wall around you, the bells. For a palace of this size is only possible at all because the age solved, wire by wire, the problem of 300 rooms needing to speak to one desk. The old world summoned service by lung and by rope, the shout down the stair, the handbell on the table, then the bell pull, the embroidered strap by the parlour fire, hauling a wire over cranks and pulleys to a curved spring bell on a board in the servants' passage. Each bell on the board jangling in its own voice under its painted room name. We heard such a board dance its little dances below stairs in a great house one night. But a bellboard is a country technology. Scale it to 300 rooms and the wires alone would fill the walls like ivy. The hotels, always the hotels first, took up the electric bell the moment the battery made it possible. A white china button by every bedhead, 2 thin wires running to the service floors, and at their end not a jangle, but an An-nun-C-I-Tor, a glazed cabinet where a small numbered disc drops or a pointer falls, silently naming the room that pressed and stays fallen until a hand resets it, so that no summons can ring and be forgotten. A press of the thumb on the 4th floor, a disc drops in a pantry 60 yards away, a waiter reads the number as a signalman reads his instruments, and the palace has a nervous system, patient, silent and exact. Alongside the wires run the tubes, the speaking tubes, mouthpieces of gutter, percha, and brass connecting desk to kitchen, kitchen to cellar, hall to housekeeper. Blow the whistle out of the far mouthpiece, put your question down 60 feet of pipe, and the answer comes back hollow and sepulchral like a spirit with a head cold, a sound every hotel servant of the age can imitate and most privately enjoy. And newest of all, in one corner of the manager's office, the instrument that will one day swallow bells and tubes together, the telephone the hotel subscribes to the city exchange. Guests may bespeak a call at the desk, and the trade papers already argue about the day, surely absurd, when every room might have one. The Grand's guests regard the instrument much as they regard the lift. A marvel, certainly. Whether an improvement, the committee is still sitting. At night, the whole nervous system idles at one synapse. Every bell in the house, from 11 to 7, rings through to a single board behind Mr. Sefton's desk. 300 buttons, any of which may summon him, and almost none of which ever does. The night's usual total is nil. The occasional hot milk, twice a year, a genuine urgency met with the trade's swift, quiet competence. But the board glimmers there at his shoulder all night, every disc up, every room silent, and he has only to glance at it to see the palace's nerves at rest, which is the electrical version of listening to a nursery breathe. The age has strung its newest wires through its newest walls, and what travels down them, 99 nights in 100, is the oldest message of all: nothing wanted, all quiet, everyone asleep. At 28 minutes to 3, into the deepest quiet of the night, the bell above the desk gives one bright double stroke, the night bell. The wire from the door, and Mr. Sefton is on his feet with his lamp turned up before the sound has finished falling, because this is the hour's one appointment, the gentleman off the night mail. Through the glass of the side door, under the dripping canopy, a four-wheeler steaming gently at the curb, a cabman handing down a portmanteau, the traveller's leather trunk bag, and a tall figure in an ulster, collar up. 400 miles of railway behind his eyes. The bolts go back, the chain comes off, the door opens on the wet night air and the gas hiss of the street. And what happens next is the whole hotel, performed in miniature by one man. "Mr. Harrington, sir, you're expected." The traveller, braced for a dark house and a long ring, unbraces by a visible inch. His bag is taken, the cab is paid its lawful fare, and a word about the weather. The door is bolted again behind them, bolts, lock, chain, the night resealed, and at the desk the register turns to receive the small ceremony by which, since inns began, a stranger becomes a guest. The name written, the key 212 lifted from its hook, where it was the rack's one empty promise all night, now kept. No kitchen waits for him, but the desk's small spirit stand produces in 6 minutes the immemorial supper of the late arrival sandwiches under a napkin, set aside at 11 against exactly this, and something warm from the little kettle, and then the porter's lamp leads the way up the sleeping staircase, past the lowered landings, 2 soft flights, to a door on the second floor where a fire has been laid since evening and takes light from a single match. The room warms. The portmanteau stands unstrapped. The traveller, who at the curbside had the grey stunned look every night train issues with its tickets, is by the fire's first 10 minutes visibly re-entering the human race. He will sleep, Mr. Sefton estimates professionally, within the quarter hour, until 10 if the maids let him. "Anything further, sir? Then good night, sir." The house is quiet. The door closes on firelight. And that sentence, "the house is quiet," said at nearly 3 in the morning by a calm man with a lamp, is worth the whole tariff. Travellers have crossed continents on worse comfort. Back at the desk he writes it in, 2.47. Mr. H in off the mail, 212, fire lit, supper up. All quiet again. The rack is full now, 300 hooks, not one key hanging idle against an absent guest. The ark loaded, the last passenger aboard. He rules his line with something as near satisfaction as the book ever records. In the old trade they would have said the inn was full and fast, every bed taken, every bolt home. 4,000 nights, and the words have never once lost their savour. 300 keys, 300 stories. While the newest guest goes down into his first sleep, take the census gently, for a grand hotel at night is the strangest parish in the city, assembled by chance, dissolved by breakfast, and worth one slow look while it lies altogether in the dark. Sleeping in this house tonight, the General, 111, 60 years a soldier and 10 a widower, who keeps campaign hours, still asleep at 10, awake at 5, and for whom the hotel is the last mess he will ever belong to. The staff have standing orders about his fire and his early tea that he has never had to give twice. The 2 elderly sisters in 120, resident from October to May these 9 years, who dress for dinner every single night and are, by unspoken constitution, the royalty of the winter house. Hotels of this age are full of such permanent guests, people who have quietly discovered that a good hotel solves servants, coal, cooking, company, and loneliness in one monthly bill. The honeymoon couple on the second floor, who signed the register 3 days ago with a new pen in a new name, and whose whole lives from here, houses, children, silver weddings, are still packed and unstrapped, like luggage the future is holding for them downstairs. The commercial traveller on the 6th, 20 years on the road, who has slept in 400 inns and hotels and rates them all by 2 tests, only the boots and the breakfast, and who gives the grand, in the privacy of his order book, full marks. The opera singer on the 1st floor, 3 weeks into her season, sleeping late by contract, her evening shoes down in Billy's ranks, and a wardrobe the chambermaids speak of in hushed voices. The family from abroad on the 3rd, father, mother, 4 children seeing the old country, whose scuffed small boots go back outside their doors like a row of dinghies moored to a liner. A judge, a bishop's widow, 2 engineers home from building railways on the far side of the world, a young man who came second in an examination that will govern his whole life and does not yet know it, and in 212 newly warm Mr. Harrington, 400 miles closer to whatever brought him. That is the parish. Every age, every errand, half the nations of the earth, stacked 7 stories deep under one roof, people who would never share a table, an opinion or a pew, sharing tonight 1 boiler, 1 bolted door and 1 man's lamp. And here is the thing worth carrying down into sleep with you. Not one of them is thinking about the hotel. They lie in the certainty so complete they have never examined it, that the door is locked, the fires are safe, and the morning will arrive warmed, blacked, pressed and buttered at the hour they wrote in the book. That certainty is manufactured. It is being made downstairs right now by a man with a pen, a boy with a blacking brush, and a stoker with a pressure gauge, the night shift of trust itself. Every parish has its watchman. This one, assembled by railway timetable and dissolved by checkout, sleeps as soundly as any village we have ever kept better, perhaps, for hardly any village ever had its watch kept quite so well. Behind the bill office under the stairs is a cupboard room with a ledger of its own that deserves a lamplit minute, the lost property office, the gentlest archive in the building, where everything the parish forgets is kept against the day it is missed. Umbrellas, first and forever umbrellas, the trade's eternal harvest, gathered by the dozen from the stands and the smoking room and the backs of cabs, ferruled and furled and standing in the corner rack like a small drenched parliament. Then the gloves, singly, always singly, a drawer of soft odd hands, the spectacles in their cases, the novels with a marker at chapter 9, abandoned forever at the exact spot where the train was called, walking sticks, a christening mug once, engraved and everything, restored after 2 frantic wires to a grandmother in the north, rings left on washstand edges, those go straight to the manager's safe, with an entry made in 2 hands, and the small, sad, sweet residue no one ever claims. A child's wooden horse from under a 3rd-floor bed, a pressed flower in a folded paper marked only Tuesday. Everything is entered, date, room, article, finder in the lost property book, the night book's homelier cousin. Everything is kept its lawful season and longer, for the house's rule, as with the trunks, is patience, and the reunions, when they come, are among the quiet pleasures of the desk. The wire from a distant railway junction, left brown umbrella, believe your hall Thursday, the parcel made up and dispatched, the shilling pressed on the head porter by a gentleman reunited with a stick his father carried. The chambermaids are the great gatherers. A bedroom after a departure is swept for forgettings as carefully as for dust, under the mattress and behind the washstand and in the drawer that sticks, because the trade knows exactly where things hide, and honesty is the absolute law of the calling, enforced less by rule books than by pride. A maid who restores a diamond pin gets her name in the manager's good book, and usually a very good Christmas indeed from its owner. And the tale of the scrub woman who found a banknote folded in a newspaper and ran 3 streets after the cab is told at staff suppers here, with local variations, as it is told in every hotel in Europe. It is the below-stairs mirror of the register's trust. The guests hand the house their nights, and the house hands back, to the last odd glove, everything that is theirs. Mr. Sefton's connection to the little office is the night zone. Things found on the night rounds, the card party's forgotten cigar case, tonight already ledgered, a novel from the Palm Court, begin their sojourn under his pen. And he has, after 11 years, a night watchman's affection for the place, which he would express, if pressed roughly so, that a house may be judged by what it does with what is forgotten in it, and by that measure the grand does honourably, and that there are worse portraits of humanity than a corner rack of Parliament standing umbrellas, hopeful things bought against storms, carried through them and left behind, every one of them, the moment the sun came out. 3 o'clock, and the hall so still that the clock's beat seems to have moved inside the listener's own chest, and Mr. Sefton turns to the small, unsleeping machine at the end of the desk, the telegraph, and the night's paperwork, for even at 3 in the morning, a grand hotel has correspondence. The wire ticks twice in the hour, unhurried. A reservation from the north, a wool merchant and wife. 3 nights next week, the big double on the 2nd floor, if it maybe had taken down, time-stamped and spiked for the morning clerks. A message for a guest, not urgent by its wording, which goes into the rack slot of his room to wait for daylight, per the porter's oldest rule of judgment, wake a man for illness, for family, for his ship sailing early, and otherwise guard his sleep like a dragon, for nothing else in a telegram cannot ripen till 8 o'clock. Then the letters. The pillar box by the desk where guests post at all hours, cleared and sorted into the leather bags the boy will run to the earliest mail. The guests' shopping of the evening parcels sent round from the theatres and the late arcades, checked against their labels and set for delivery with the morning trays. And then his own slow bookwork, the night's small administration, the wake-up book ruled and reviewed 4:30, the pastry cook, 5 the kitchen, 6 the general's tea, 6:30 the 3rd floor family for their steamer train, 7 the general rising each hour's knocks, grouped and ordered like a little battle plan of gentleness. The railway timetable checked against the morning's departures, 2 candle ends replaced, the founding entry of tomorrow already forming under tonight's date, and somewhere in this hour, all over the sleeping city and the sleeping house, the old 2-act night has its quiet interval. A few of the 300 surface, briefly the wakeful 4th floor guest's light goes out at last. A child on the 3rd floor calls once, and is settled by its mother. The general, campaign-trained, wakes at 3 exactly, hears the rain, identifies it as rain, approves of it, and is asleep again in 90 seconds, the drifting half-hour between sleeps that the older world knew as ordinary, and this hurrying new one is beginning to forget. The house breathes through it and goes down again, deeper than before. 3.40, writes Mr. Sefton, in the roundest, slowest version of his hand, the one the small hours always draw out of the pen. Wire twice, nothing urgent, mails made up, wakebook ruled, all quiet. And then, because 11 years have not made him incapable of poetry, only economical with it, he adds the entry he permits himself perhaps once a season, when the rain is right and the house is perfect. The quietest house in the city. The wire is quiet, the house is full and fast, and the deep hours are good ones for remembering the turning of the hotel's own year, because a grand hotel has seasons as surely as a farm, and the warmest of them, the one the whole staff privately loves best, is deep midwinter, Christmas at the Grand. It surprises people who think of hotels as places for passing through, but Christmas fills this house to the last attic single, and fills it mostly with the same faces every year. The residents' relations come up from the country. The elderly sisters in 120 preside over their 9th consecutive hotel Christmas like dowager queens at court. Widowers and bachelors and far-flung families who have no great kitchen of their own book their table in the great dining room a year ahead, for the hotels discovered, somewhere in the middle of the century, that they could give the age something it badly wanted. Christmas with all of the warmth and none of the labor. Goose and plum pudding and a lit tree the height of the palm court, conjured by 200 hands for people whose own households could never have mounted it. The kitchen begins its puddings in November, by the hundredweight, every member of the brigade giving the mixture its ritual stir. The halls are dressed with holly and ivy up the great staircase, and on the day itself, the TAHBL day, comes the grandest ordinary of the year, turtle soup and turkey, and the pudding marching in blue-flamed and triumphant, while the band plays carols in the palm court, and the snow, if the year is kind, does its part beyond the tall windows. And below stairs on the same day, the mirrored feast, the servants' Christmas dinner, staff dining room dressed, the chef cooking for his own brigade for once, the manager carving and saying his yearly words, small gifts from the house down to the newest page, the one day the two cities under this roof sit down, in their separate halls, to the same menu. The night of Christmas is the gentlest night of the porter's year. The house full, the guests carried up early on goose and contentment, the corridors smelling faintly of cigar smoke and orange peel, the boots outside the doors with sprigs of holly stuck in one or two by younger guests as a joke that Billy solemnly polishes around. Mr. Sefton has kept 11 of them, and his Christmas entry is a private tradition, the book's one annual ornament, midnight, house down, full to the roof. All quiet and a happy Christmas to it. Tonight is an ordinary rainy night in an ordinary month, months from the holly. But that entry is in the book 11 times, and the year is turning toward the 12th even as the clock walks, and it is a pleasant thing to hold on a night watch that the same marble hall that keeps this plain wet Tuesday will keep in its season the blue-flamed pudding and the carols, with the same lamp burning and the same pen ruling the same small line under all of it. Houses that keep every kind of night keep Christmas best. Ask any innkeeper in any century, or ask the man at the desk who would only nod and turn the lamp a shade lower and let the clock answer for him. The rain on the canopy has a cousin hundreds of miles away tonight, falling on a very different grand. And while the city house sleeps, remember the other family of palaces this age has built, the great hotels of the seaside, where half the guests upstairs have already been this year, and the other half are going next. The railway made them too. Of course, everything in this chapter of the world was made by the railway. When the lines ran down to the coasts, they carried something no previous century had ever moved in bulk. Ordinary people, in their millions, going to the sea on purpose, for pleasure, for the air, for the fortnight that the new age was teaching itself to call a holiday. And where the trains stopped, the palaces rose white and enormous along the new promenades, turreted like castles, verandahede like liners, their names a litany of confidence: the grand, the majestic, the imperial, the metropole. A seaside grand hotel is this house translated into holiday, the same marble and table d'hôte, the same key rack and night book, but with sand in the corridor's future and a telescope in the drawing room. Children permitted, even celebrated. Bathing machines drawn up on the shingle below like a regiment of wheeled sentry boxes, and the whole establishment tuned to a different calendar the season, the great tidal year of the trade, which fills every room from July to September, breathes through the soft months, and in deep winter leaves the vast white palaces standing nearly empty above the grey sea, kept by skeleton staffs, their shrouded ballrooms waiting out the storms like ships laid up asleep for whole months at a time, the only houses in the world that hibernate. The night porter's trade runs different there, and the Porters' Benevolent Society dinners hear about it annually from both sides. The seaside night is younger and lighter. Children who cannot sleep for excitement, sunburnt gentlemen wanting soda water, the last waltz ending later, the whole house smelling of salt and holidays, and beyond the bolted doors not the cab hiss of a city street, but the one great sound the seaside porter keeps his watch to the sea itself, working its beat below the promenade, the oldest night ambience on earth. City porters affect to pity their seaside brethren the noise. Seaside porters affect to pity the city men the lack of it. Both, at 3 in the morning, at their separate lamps, with their separate books ruled to the same all quiet, are the same man. And more than one guest sleeping upstairs tonight in this city grand will lie next August in a bed by the sea, kept by the same watch under a different sound, and never once think of either keeper, which is, as ever, exactly how the keepers would have it. He thinks of the sea for a moment, Mr. Sefton, who served 2 of his soldiering years on garrison duty above a harbour, and has kept a small, unexamined fondness for salt water ever since. Then the clock brings him home. The rain eases. The city house holds its deep. Somewhere south, the tide is turning under 100 sleeping hotels. The watch is kept in all of them. On we go. Half the sleeping parish upstairs came a long way to be here, and the deep hours are a good time to remember how they found the place, because this age invented not only the grand hotel, but the grand tourist, and the two grew up holding hands. The steamships did it, and the railways, and one small red book. Crossing an ocean within living memory was an ordeal undertaken for empire, emigration, or desperation. Now, the great liners make it a scheduled fortnight with deck chairs, and every season they land, by the thousand, the age's newest travellers, Americans doing Europe, whole families of them, unhurried and well-funded, and gloriously determined to see everything. 6 countries in 8 weeks, cathedrals by the dozen, and with them the colonials home on furlough, the merchants of 3 continents, the wandering scholars and painters and honeymooners of every nation that owns a steamship line. They travel nearly all of them with the little red book, the guidebook, Baedeker's or its rivals, the age's paper courier, which grades the sights with stars and the hotels with cautious adjectives, tells a traveller what to see, what to pay, what to tip, and what to think of it afterwards, and has done more to arrange the movements of the human race than most parliaments. A grand hotel lives in those pages, the way a ship lives in Lloyd's Register. A good line in Baedeker is worth a mural of gilded cherubs, and managers have been known to read their entry in the new edition with more anxiety than their balance sheets. And so the Marble Hall by day is one of the great crossroads of the century. More nations through its revolving door in a season than through most border posts, and the Register is its treaty book, signed in a dozen national hands. The hotels of the world have quietly organized themselves for it. Interpreters' offices off the hall, exchange rates chalked small and fair at the cashier's wicket, couriers, the professional travelling servants who convoy wealthy families across whole continents, lodged in their own attic corridor, porters who can say good evening, and the lift is this way in 5 languages, which at the desk of a grand hotel is not showing off, but plain tooling. Sefton carries his 5 phrases like his master keys, and needed 3 of them tonight. Not at all, but the American family sails for home on Saturday, and the Swedish engineer goes north on Monday, and somewhere in next week's arrivals book are names from 4 more countries, travelling on the little red book's advice toward this exact lamplit door. The wonder of it goes both ways and is easily missed. To the guests, the marvel is the crossroads the world made passable, graded, starred and bookable. But stand at the desk at 3 in the morning and the marvel points the other way. That a merchant of one hemisphere lies asleep at this moment above a stoker of another in a building neither could find again on a map without the red book, and that both, having consulted their stars and adjectives, handed their nights without a second thought to a stranger's lamp. Every treaty the century signs is argued for years. This one, the traveller's plain nightly treaty with the lighted door, renews itself silently, In every city on earth, 300 beds at a time. There is one guest in this house tonight who is not a guest at all, and no census of the sleeping parish is complete without him. Up on the first floor, at the quiet end, behind a door with no number, sleeps Mr. Vane, the manager, in the neat set of rooms that comes with the crown, one wall away from the empire he answers for. The hotel manager is one of the age's newly invented men. A generation ago, the word scarcely existed in this sense. An inn had its landlord, who owned what he kept and kept what he owned. But a palace of 300 rooms is beyond any landlord's purse. The great hotels are built by companies now, with shareholders and boards and debentures, and the whole roaring enterprise is entrusted to a salaried commander, part innkeeper, part admiral, part ambassador, who must be at once a judge of turtle soup and of boiler contracts, of wine and of men, fluent in the season's arithmetic and the chambermaid's grievance, equal to a duchess's complaint at 7 and a drain's crisis at past. The best of them rise the long way waiter, head waiter, maître d'hôtel, assistant manager, house by house across the great hotels of the continent, collecting languages like luggage labels, and the trade already speaks of the day, coming fast, when there will be schools for it, in Switzerland naturally, and hotel keeping will be a profession a father may wish on a clever son with a clear conscience. The famous Swiss, whose name became a synonym for luxury, began as a waiter. Every manager in Europe knows it, and most of them keep the fact where other men keep regimental photographs. Mr. Vane's day is the house's day, doubled. He is in the hall for the morning departures and the evening arrivals, dines late and lightly after watching 300 others dine early and well, and ends past midnight with the day books. And then he climbs to the numberless door, and sleeps as millers sleep by their wheels, and captains in their cabins, inside the very machine he commands, its boilers 2 floors beneath his pillow, its lift shaft humming faintly in the wall like a ship's engines. The trade's phrase is that a manager lives above the shop, and the phrase is exact. He has given the house not his hours, but his residence, his address, the whole envelope of his life. His children, if he has them, grow up knowing the linen country and the pastry kitchen as other children know orchards. It is the price of the crown, and also, though few of them say it the point, a hotel run from a villa across town would be a business. Run from the quiet end of the first floor, it remains what it descends from, a household. The biggest household in the city, with the oldest arrangement at its heart, the master asleep under his own roof, trusting the watch below, and that trust has a precise shape, and its shape is the night porter. The 2 men confer for 5 minutes each evening, at 11 the day handed down, the night handed over, and Mr. Vane goes up to his numberless door and sleeps, because Sefton is at the desk, with a completeness he would find hard to admit, and never has to. In 11 years he has been woken 4 times, each time rightly, each time to find the matter already half managed by the man with the lamp. The shareholders trust the manager trusts the porter trusts the book, the bolts, and his own 2 ears, and at the bottom of the whole gilded pyramid of the age's grandest industry, holding it up all night, every night, one steady man, one small flame, one ruled line. All quiet. The company pays dividends on that sentence, though it has never once appeared in the annual report. 4 o'clock, the hour we know, the low dead water, the keeper's own, and Mr. Sefton does what every watchman we have ever kept nights with does now. He makes his small camp against the deepest hour and holds it. The lamp trimmed, the desk chair his chair, 11 years shaped to him, angled so the door, the rack, and the stair foot lie in one glance. A pot of tea from the spirit stand, strong, the sentry's fuel, 2 of the kitchen's biscuits on the saucer by unbroken nightly treaty with the chef. The hall around him has gone into its final depth. Marble and mirrors and palms, all standing in the low gold half-light, like a photograph of themselves. And the clock's beat is the only moving thing, that, and the small weather of the fire behind its guard. He does not fight the hour, and he does not read through it a porter reads earlier, if at all. At 4, the listening tenth of him wants the whole of his quiet. He simply sits, hands folded, in the state his trade shares with the lighthouse and the signal box and the rocking chair by the nursery fire, 9/10 at rest, 1/10 standing sentry, awake in the way embers are lit. Once in the hour he steps to the door and looks out through the glass at the sleeping street, the gas lamps down the wet pavement in their long dwindling necklace, each with its little sphere of shining rain. A policeman passing on his beat with the unhurried tread that is the same in every city and every century, who touches his helmet to the lighted door and receives the porter's nod, watch acknowledging watch through the glass. Far off, the first market cart of the morning, hours early as always, jingling toward the halls with the day's cabbages under its tarpaulin, while the city that will eat them dreams on. We have walked that city's whole night once, lamplighter to dawn, on another evening together. It is all still out there, all still working, the cab shelters steaming, the bakers at their ovens by now, the night sorted and carried and kept by its scattered thousand keepers. The Grand's lit doorway is one bead on that long necklace of watches. He lets the blind fall and comes back to the lamp, and sitting there, tea cooling, clock walking, 300 sleepers stacked above him in the warm dark like cargo of the gentlest kind. He arrives as every one of our watchmen arrives, somewhere in the 4th hour, at the plain settled thing beneath the trade. He could not tell you why the work suits him, and would not try, but it is this, that the world divides roughly into those who sleep and those who mind the sleepers, and that he found his side of the line young and has never once wanted to cross back. The wages are ordinary, the thanks are nearly none, but 4,000 nights of all quiet stand in a row of books in the manager's office, and every line of them was true because he was here, and a man may warm himself at that fact, at 4 in the morning, better than at most fires. The clock walks, the rain stops. Above the glass canopy, unseen, the sky over the city begins its first, faintest turn toward grey. One more turn of the hotel's year deserves its page, while the still hour holds the city's own high tide, the months the trade simply calls the season, when this house is as full as Christmas for weeks together, and the reason is written in every closed carriage that passes the door. The season is the old aristocratic spring, the months when landed society leaves its country houses and comes to town in a body, for the sitting of Parliament nominally, and for each other in truth. The balls, the presentations at court, the opera, the great exhibitions, the picture shows, the racing weeks that bracket it all. Once that migration filled only the private townhouses of the great squares, but the age has multiplied the migrants faster than the mansions, the country families of middling estate, the manufacturers' wives with daughters to launch, the colonials home with fortunes, all wanting 6 weeks of London at the flood, and the grand hotels caught the overflow and then became quietly the preferred vessel. A suite at the Grand for the season solves what a rented house cannot. Staff without hiring, dinners without a cook, a ballroom adjacent address without a lease, and the sisters in 120, who remember managing a townhouse with 9 servants, will tell anyone who asks that they gave it up for the hotel with the relief of sailors reaching harbour. So for those weeks the house becomes a staging post of the gilded calendar. The corridors after midnight rustle with returning ball gowns, the lift runs late and full, the flower orders triple, carriages are called for 11 at night as commonly as cabs for morning trains, and the wake book fills with the season's own strange arithmetic. 5:30 knocks for the racing specials, 10 o'clock trays for the dancers of the night before, both in the same column of the same page. The night porter's watch shortens at both ends and thickens in the middle, and the book's entries grow briefly worldly. 2.50, party of 8 in from the Duchess's ball, supper up to the first floor. 3.15, all quiet. Even that, even the season at its highest, folds back always into the same 2 words. And then, in a week at the end of summer, the tide goes out. The shutters go up on the great squares. Society scatters to the moors and the sea. The hotel exhales, and the house fills instead with the tourists of the Little Red Book, come to look at the empty stage. Sefton has watched 11 of those tides come and go from the one fixed point of the desk, and it has given him the night watchman's version of philosophy, which is short. Seasons are weather. The season, the seaside summer, Christmas, the quiet, wet Tuesdays of November, they change what the house holds, never what the house is. And at 3 in the morning, every one of them sounds exactly alike, which is to say, like the clock and the rain and 300 people breathing. The lamp does not keep the season. The lamp keeps the night, and the nights are all one family. And the book rules the same small line under the Duchess's ball as under the commercial traveller's Tuesday, which is, if you want it in a sentence, the whole dignity of the trade, one remembering more in the hour that belongs to the keepers, and this one belongs to the keeper himself, the profession of the night porter, and how a man comes to it, and what the Brotherhood knows that it never says. They come, most of them, by 2 roads. The first is the army. Old soldiers like Sefton, time-served sergeants and corporals, whom the hotels prize above all other applicants, for the trade's advertisement almost writes itself. Steady man wanted. Knights must be used to watches and responsibility, and who is more used to both than a man who has stood guard for the Queen. The second road is the house itself. Pages who became luggage porters, who became daymen, who somewhere past 45 found they had the temperament, for it is a temperament, rarer than it sounds, the constitution that turns willingly against the sun, the nerves that prefer a quiet post to a busy one, the disposition that can be alone all night, every night, for years and remain kind. Not every steady man has it. The Day Brigade works in a rushing crowd. The night porter is a garrison of 1, and the trade sorts ruthlessly for the men who are improved rather than eroded by that. Wages are modest, as we have said. The veils and the Christmas boxes mend them, and the hours give a man his daylight sleep, and one priceless possession the day staff never know, the house at its best, which is to say, asleep. And they know each other, the night men of a city, a loose invisible brotherhood, met at the Porters' Benevolent Society dinners once a year, and otherwise only by report, the way lighthouse keepers know keepers on other rocks. They carry the same 3 articles of faith. First, the sleep of the house is the work not guarding, not the door. Those are means. The product is 300 unbroken sleeps, and a porter measures his night as a keeper measures his light, by nothing having happened. Second, judgment overrules. The night is full of small decisions which wire can wait, which knock is warranted, which late traveller is welcomed, and which lighted doorway politely narrows, and the whole craft is deciding them gently and being right. Third, and deepest, discretion, absolute and lifelong. The night porter of a great hotel sees the age with its public face laid on the pillow, its small vanities, its economies, its sorrows sitting up late, and the Brotherhood's honour is a sealed book more faithful than the register. What the night knows, the night keeps. It is why the trade's word is trusted at every desk in the city, and why when a porter of the old school finally leaves his lamp, the manager shakes his hand as one does with a man who could have written memoirs, and chose all his life to write all quiet instead. 11 years, and perhaps 9 more in him, Sefton would say if pressed. then the tin box and a cottage, and he suspects it already and is right, a lifetime's habit of waking sharply at 3 to listen contentedly to nothing. The trade marks its men that way. Every trade of every night we have kept does. It is the watchman's pension over and above the tin box, a lifelong certainty, carried to the last, of exactly what the small hours sound like when all is well. At 4:30, the first knock of the wake book falls the pastry cook's door, up on the staff floor, 2 soft raps from Billy, and a waiting listen for the answering grunt that is the receipt, and with it, far below, the palace's heart begins its morning turn. Mr. Croft opens his boiler dampers and the pressure starts its long climb toward the day's demand. The kitchen nightman breaks the banked ranges open and feeds them, and the red breathing in the dark kitchen becomes, coal by coal, a working fire. The stockpot, muttering all night, is skimmed and encouraged, and at 5 the pastry cook comes down his cold stair, buttoning his whites, first of the 200, and lights his ovens for the breakfast rolls in a kitchen that is exactly, comfortingly, as the night delivered it. The morning comes up through this house from below, the way it comes up through every great house. Fires first, then water, then bread, and floor by floor the staff stairs begin to creak with the day shift descending. Kitchen at 5, still room and scullery at 5:30, the boots and knives boys, the earliest chambermaids with their cans for the corridor taps serve the bathrooms, but the morning ritual of hot water to the bedroom washstand survives all plumbing, and the hall porter's room fills with the Day Brigade shrugging into their braided coats. The palace, which fell asleep last night from the top down, wakes from the bottom up, and for 1 hour the 2 states overlap perfectly. 300 guests still fathoms down in the dark upper floors, while beneath them the whole engine of their breakfast comes quietly to steam. Mr. Sefton keeps the desk through the overlap, the wake book open beside the lamp it no longer quite needs, the hall windows going from black to slate to pearl. The General's tea goes up at 6 exactly, with the single early newspaper the newsboy has just thrown, still smelling of ink under the canopy. The answering thankee through the door of 111 is as much a fixture of the house as the clock. The third-floor family is knocked at 6:30 for their steamer train, and presently comes down, all 6 of them in travelling clothes, into the waking hall, children first like spilled marbles, to the growler already standing at the curb, the first departure, boots shining, bill settled, the palace beginning its daily dissolution. Milk churns ring on the pavement, the fishmonger's cart, the ice cart, the laundry vans, the whole supply fleet of the palace docking at the area gates as the street lamps go out along the necklace, one pale gas bead at a time, overtaken by the ordinary miracle of daylight. At 7 the head porter arrives, a silver-haired eminence in a coat with more braid than an admiral's, who commands the hall by day as Sefton keeps it by night, and at the desk occurs the handover, the same 2-minute rite in every watchkeeping trade on earth, the book turned and read, the night given over in 6 sentences. Mr. H in off the mail, 2:12, likely to sleep late. 1 wakeful on the 4th, settled. Wire from the north, spiked. All else quiet, all quiet, all quiet. The dayman nods, takes the desk, becomes the hotel, and Mr. Sefton, unbuttoning the top button of the braided coat as he passes the staff door, the watch's one small ceremony of release, steps out under the canopy into the wet, bright morning street, a man off duty in a world coming on duty, and walks home through the waking city at the sentry's unhurried pace, past the shop boys taking down shutters and the doorsteps being scrubbed, to lodgings 2 streets off, drawn curtains, and the long deep daylight sleep of the men who mind the night. The Grand stands behind him in the morning sun, 300 windows catching the light, roaring softly back to life, and not one soul going in or out of it knows the name of the man who kept it, which is, as it has always been, the proof the thing was done right, and because no night at a hotel is truly told without the shore it lands on, stay one last half hour for the morning's masterpiece, the meal the whole night was quietly building toward, the English hotel breakfast. It assembles itself between 7 and 8, like a play changing sets in daylight. The dining room the porter walked in darkness is remade. 60 tables clothed and squared, the morning silver laid, the long sideboard dressed in its ranks of covered dishes, with the spirit lamps lit beneath for the grand breakfast, is served partly from the sideboard in the old country house manner, and the lifting of those domed covers is the morning's first entertainment. Bacon and eggs, of course, and then the deep national repertoire, kippers and kedgeree, devilled kidneys, cold ham and game pie standing by from yesterday's larder, porridge for the northerners, racks of toast in their silver gales, marmalade in cut glass, and coffee and tea in hotel plate pots, polished to the brightness of small suns. The first guests down are always the same congregation. The general at 7 sharp, campaign punctual, to his fixed table with his second newspaper. The commercial traveller, breakfasting like a man fueling a locomotive, his order book already beside his plate. The steamer family gone, the honeymooners conspicuous by absence, the opera singer an unbroken rumour upstairs. The room fills softly, the windows stand full of morning, the night is nowhere in it at all, and threaded through the toast and the coffee runs the morning's paperwork of pleasure. The letters. The first post arrives before 8, and the hall porter's desk sorts it into the guests' pigeonholes, the rack's daylight twin, so that breakfast at a grand hotel comes with one's correspondence propped against the toast rack, the age's gentlest luxury. News of home read warm at a clean table someone else laid, before a day someone else will largely carry. The newspapers hang on their wooden batons in the coffee room. The timetable stands ready by the door for the planning of trains. The whole apparatus of the day offers itself, course by course, exactly as the dinner did, and the guest who slept through every working minute of the night that made this possible butters his toast in the sunlight and finds the world, on the whole, extremely well arranged. He is right, of course. It is. 60 tables of it, arranged all night by lamplight. The boots that shone at every door by 6, the boilers Mr. Croft kept breathing, the rolls the pastry cook was knocked up at 4:30 to bake, the quiet ruled line under all quiet that made every unbroken sleep above it possible. Breakfast is the night watch made visible and edible. It is the product, plated. And somewhere, 2 streets away, as the marmalade goes round, the man who manufactured it is drawing his curtains against the sun with the practiced hand of 11 years, and going down into his own well-earned dark, the last sleeper of the old night, the first of the new. The grand roars softly on above its boilers. The rack fills and empties. The book waits, ruled for 11 o'clock. And that is the night, the whole of one night, the last waltz to the first breakfast, in the sleeping palace of the Grand. But the morning belongs to the Day Brigade. The night is still ours, and it is still raining gently in it, somewhere behind us where the hours are kept. Come back into it once more, slowly, and let it go by like the rain on the canopy glass, one soft thing after another, going down, the glass canopy, and the cabs hissing away down the wet street, the revolving door at rest, the side door bolted, 2 bolts, a lock, a chain, each with its own old sound, the marble hall in its low gold light, the palms in their tubs, patient as ever, the clock in its mahogany case, walking, the key rack, 300 hooks, filling as the house goes up to bed, the last candle of habit, climbing the great staircase, the night book, open under the lamp, the round, unhurried hand, midnight, house down, all quiet. The boots outside the doors, pair by pair down the dim corridors, the stout pair, the little scuffed pairs, the bridal shoes, side by side and slightly touching. The boot room's lamplight, blacking and beeswax, the brush, the cloth, the shine, pair by pair back to their doors, heels to the wainscot, before any eye is open, the round of the public rooms, the lamps swimming down the mirrors of the dark dining room, 60 tables breathing linen, the palm court and the rain conversing softly on the glass, the stair round landing by landing, the gas lowered to its bead on every floor, little buds of blue-gold light climbing into silence, the city below, the ranges breathing red, the stockpot muttering its one word, 30,000 bottles asleep on their sides, the staff floor under the slates, 200 working sleepers, the night bell once out of the deep, the traveller off the mail, 400 miles behind his eyes, the fire taking from a single match. Good night, sir. The house is quiet, the rack full now. Every hook, every key, every sleeper home, full and fast, the wire ticking twice, unhurried. The wake book ruled. 4:30, the pastry cook. 6, the general's tea. The little battle plan of gentleness. 4 o'clock, the still water, the tea and the 2 biscuits. The policeman's helmet touched to the lighted door, watch acknowledging watch, the lamps down the wet pavement in their long necklace. The first market cart, hours early, jingling through the dark, and the breathing of the house. 300 sleepers, 7 stories, 1 warm dark. The general, the sisters, the honeymooners, the traveller, the children, like moored dinghies, breathing in and out, in and out. The sound a palace is for. Sleep now, like the house, floor by floor. Let the day go down through you, story by story, the gas lowered ring by ring. The doors are bolted, the fires are banked, the boots are done, the book is ruled, and the lamp on the desk burns low and steady. The smallest office in the palace, the one that holds up all the rest. Somewhere tonight it is always burning, some marble hall, some wooden lodge, some shelf, some year, and someone steady is beside it, with one ear kept for the sleeping floors. The clock walks, the rain speaks softly on the glass, the pen writes all quiet and rules its small line, all quiet, the truest, kindest sentence in the book. And if you are still drifting, stay for one more round of the lamp, slower yet, for the night is long and the house does not tire of being kept. Down the marble hall once more, at the sentry's pace. The palms, the mirrors, the clock in its case walking its one word, the dining room in the dark breathing linen, the palm court, and the ghost of the last waltz, 3/4 time under the rain, the luggage room, the sleeping trunks with their mosaic lids, Paris under Lucerne, the patient shelf at the back, the linen country behind its doors, battalions of folded white, smelling of lavender and hot iron, tomorrow's 300 beds, waiting in the dark, the stair, landing by landing, first floor, second, third, the boots at their doors, heels to the wainscot, the little scuffed pairs, the bridal shoes touching, 4th floor, 5th, the gas at its bead, 6th, and the honest snore of a man who walked 3 counties, the staff floor under the slates, 200 working sleepers, and down again flight by flight to the lamp. The tea gone cold and no matter, the bellboard glimmering, every disc up, every room silent, the wire still, the wake book ruled, 4:30, 5, 6, the little battle plan of gentleness, waiting for the light, the general fathoms down on campaign time, the sisters home, the traveller off the mail, warm at last in 212, the children moored in their row, Mr. Croft at his gauges, Billy on his cot, Mr. Vane behind the numberless door, the whole crew of the night, above and below, each at their station or their rest, 500 sleepers, one roof, one lamp, breathing in and out, slower now, the sound a palace is for, the rain finishing its small business on the glass, the street lamps in their necklace burning down toward morning, the policeman's step somewhere unhurried, the same in every century, the bolts home, the chain on, the fires banked and guarded, cellar to attic, the pen, the book, the small ruled line, all quiet, all quiet, all quiet. Sleep well. The house is down. The watch is kept. The lamp is burning at the door. Good night. Sleep well. The house is down. The doors are bolted. The lamp is burning. All quiet, all quiet. The clock walks, the watch is kept. 300 sleepers, safe till morning.